I'm Dr. Fred DeRuvo, and this is another Food for Thought. I was just looking here at the vision2america.org website. They got a lot of interesting information here. One in particular is, it's actually kind of funny. It certainly doesn't mean to be, but it's about our illustrious president as well as the Attorney General, Eric Holder, Department of Justice. And apparently the article is about acceptable racism, which to me is an oxymoron. I didn't really even know that there was an acceptable amount of racism, but let's find out what Eric Holder says about this. The article starts off with quoting Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and he says, quote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere," unquote. But they also point out that apparently U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder didn't get that memo. And it's really interesting here because apparently Holder announced this past Tuesday that he was fed up listening to whining white people who claim the Justice Department deliberately blocks investigations of black-on-white racism. And of course the establishment media predictably sides with Eric Holder in that regard. But he goes on and he says, "Think about that," Holder said. "When you compare what people endured in the South in the 60s to try to get the right to vote for African Americans, to compare that with what people are subjected to today, quote unquote, and what happened in Philadelphia," which was inappropriate. He does admit that, and I'll talk about that in just a second. But he says to compare that with what happened in Philadelphia from the 60s, and to describe it in those terms, he says, does a great disservice to people who put their lives on the line for, quote, "my people," unquote, says Eric Holder, referring to himself and his people, which are African American. Well, there's a couple of problems here. The situation in Philadelphia is the situation where you recall that the new Black Panthers, a couple of them were standing in front of the voting precincts, and they were acting pretty intimidating. As a matter of fact, there are plenty of videos on the net where it shows them just standing there. One of them has a big billy club, and there are other people around who are saying that they didn't feel comfortable walking past those two gentlemen to get into the precinct to vote. Now, this is not necessarily black-on-white racism. What this is a federal crime. And Eric Holder has decided that, oh, it was just inappropriate. But I'm sure there were more than just white people there trying to get into the voting precinct. But here's the bigger problem. Eric Holder, our Attorney General of the United States, not the Attorney General of the African American community, he is supposed to process and represent equal justice for all people, regardless of skin color, race, culture, doesn't matter. But what he's saying right here is he's not interested in doing that. So basically what he's saying is, look, there's an acceptable amount of racism. If there's some racism that happens against white people, well, okay. They haven't been around long enough. They haven't suffered enough like my people, his people, have. That's wrong. But what we've got in our government today, headed up by President Obama, are people, cronies, who are literally appointed to these positions because of their radical viewpoints. They shouldn't be there, but they are. And the problem is that because of their radical viewpoints, those viewpoints denigrate not only the people of this United States, but the Constitution upon which it was founded. I'm Dr. Fred DeRuvo, and that's Food for Thought. Join me again next time.